probably one of the hardest businesses to ever get into if you want to actually make a decent living, because it takes years and years to actually get established.
Going back a couple of decades, just quickly on the convenience store industry, there wasn't a chilled meal to be seen until probably around COVID, pre-COVID time. That segment of meals that either be taken home or reheated there and then has actually grown into quite a category now.
I was always fascinated by innovation and fascinated by new products, but definitely I wasn't in food manufacturing. So everything that I learned was through trial and error and actually failing and learning.
There was quite an acceptance by the consumers of this turn of phrase, ready to cook, buying stir fry or raw kebabs to cook. Fully cooked and heat meal segment has definitely, in the last 4, 5, 6 years, has definitely evolved.
Hey guys, welcome to a very special episode here on the Food Mentor with David Burns. So guys, we have a magnificent lineup here today. So first we start off with David Burns, who's been designing and distributing market food brands that stand out, over 1 billion revenue for clients. So as David Burns, CEO of DJB Food Group, partnering with food and FMCG entrepreneurs, manufacturers and large enterprises to assist in the development of new brands and product ranges. A keynote speaker as he departs on his world tour, we have now Adnan to join us on the Food Mentor Live. Now, Adnan is the founder and CEO of Yummy Karma Foods, a company he co-founded, guys, in 2016 at his kitchen table in Sydney, and he's grown it to a nationally recognized and globally scaling producer of chilled and frozen meat solutions. Adnan has had a passion coming from humble beginnings. Yummy Karma now operates a modern SQF and export certified purpose-built state-of-the-art manufacturing facility here in Riverstone, Western Australia, guys. So with the capacity to deliver millions of high-quality meals every year, they've been proudly servicing major supermarkets, convenience retailers, airlines, and food service operators across Australia and, guys, international markets. So to be able to bring you guys here as you guys are on your travels, which, an amazing connection between David and the experience of Adnan, and how this can also motivate other FMCG within the industry. So thank you guys so much for joining the show and joining the Food Mentor Live with David Burns.
Thanks, Ajira. Great to be here.
Yeah, thanks, Ajira and David. We've been looking forward to actually having this catch up for a while now, but excited to finally get it started.
Marketing is all about storytelling. Dad, when we first started this business, what did you say to me?
I said, yes, we do a podcast.
Why?
Because I want to tell our story.
Why?
Because I know the story builds a legacy.
Builds a legacy. And that is exactly what we do here at ETS Rubasha Media. We market your story on social media so you could build a legacy for those who come after you, to build your business and your personal brand.
Yeah, follow us on our platform. Go on our website, etsrubashamedia.com.
This is about legacy, and it is about showing up on social media every single day, because if you don't show up, your competition will.
I was just going to say, Adnan, this meal segment, I've been involved. So first of all, you and I spoke, first time maybe 18 months or 2 years ago regarding a sort of contract manufacturing potential project. So we'll talk about the contract manufacturing side a bit later on. But so interestingly, for yourselves and the audience here, this segment of chilled meals, ready to eat foods, meals and morsels was where I actually cut my teeth in the retail industry. So Coles actually in 1995, which is over 30 years ago. I was part of a team who, let's call it, was involved in the sort of, at that time, pioneering this segment. So it's a segment I'm extremely fond of and close to. And we were back in the day, before, not many people would know this, but there was actually a period at Coles where I was leading cooking and blast chilling meals in store to be displayed in the deli for sale to consumers. So obviously fabulous for consumers, but not so viable to scale that across hundreds and hundreds of stores. But Adnan, let's talk about your background and what was your background before you got into this this meal spice. I always love these very unusual stories of where did it all begin before Yummy Karma.
Yeah, absolutely. So look, thank you so much for that background as well, David. So my background is basically I was not from the food industry, definitely not from food manufacturing. So I guess, my wife and I, we joke, it's probably one of the hardest businesses to ever get into if you want to actually, be, make a decent living, because, it takes, years and years to actually, get established. My background was actually, I was into kind of market research consulting. So I worked with a few companies prior to starting Yummy Karma. I was working with a company called Ipsos, which is a global market insights firm, and then I did some other work with a company called 555, which was more around NPD and market research consulting, testing new ideas and concepts. So I was always fascinated by innovation and fascinated by new products, because I did a bit of work with FMCG companies in my previous life, but definitely, I wasn't in food manufacturing. So everything that we kind of learned, I guess I learned, was through trial and error and actually failing and learning. So yeah, so I think my background was a little bit different from a kind of management consulting, market consulting background, but we kind of stumbled upon the business really by chance, because this is going back sort of 8 or 9 years when we started. And at the time, the market in Australia for prepared foods was still nascent. I know it's been obviously around for a while, but it was still a developing market back then. And we just found that there was a gap. There was an opportunity to do something clean label and natural. And we actually started the brand Yummy Karma back in the day. I think the business actually evolved quite a lot. So initially it started really organic. As Sujira mentioned, we really started from our home kitchen. We initially did like 4 recipes that we literally prepared at home. And I remember, to this day, I literally walked into, my first IGA store, literally with little cups of samples, and actually, walked in and actually tried to sell the product. And the guy looked at me and said, "What is this? You don't even have packaging ready. Like, what are you going to do?" So then we went back and actually, worked on the brand, worked on the packaging. So look, we started really naive. We really started, I would say, from the grassroots of building the business. And I think from there, the business kind of evolved into what it is now.
Yeah, my amazing story. You've done absolutely fabulous job. I mean, 10 years is not a really long time in terms of, developing a food brand. So you've really done an amazing job. I mean, everyone would know within the industry and maybe from outside the industry, I think it is one of the most competitive segments in the industry. I know obviously the major supermarkets have their own brands, and I think it's a bit better now, but there was some, serious pricing going on where some of the retail prices would have probably been the cost of goods of some of the food manufacturers. So and obviously at a glance, even today, when you have a glance at the meals layout, there's not an enormous amount of differentiation. So how have you carved out your key point of difference, which you clearly definitely have?
Yeah, look, that's a really interesting question, and thank you for that, because I think that's something we think about quite a lot within our business. I think what's really been quite useful for us, or Yummy Cup, I think what's been really a defining piece for us is really, we don't look at ourselves as a ready meals company. So we look at ourselves as a meal solutions business. And when I say that, I mean,
Yeah.
we define ourselves as a company that provides solutions for making consumers' lives easier at different stages of their meal consumption journey. And I think when we started looking at a business in that manner, it opened up a lot of new opportunities and channels that we wouldn't have normally looked at. So I think initially when we started the business, we were a traditional ready-made meals company, supplying branded meals into the retail market, into the consumer space. But then obviously the business evolved to a point where now I think the key part of our business is actually airlines. So we
Yeah,
do a lot of
amazing.
work. I think 40% of our business is actually supplying products into the airline market. The other kind of 30% is private label and contract manufacturing. So it's again looking at, working with retailers, but working with retailers in a more contractual manner where you have contracts, you're doing products under their brand. And therefore it is a little bit different to having your own brand where you're going through performance reviews and range reviews every 6 months. So I think you're kind of at the mercy of the retailer when you're doing your own products, own brands. And then the third part of the business is obviously supplying products into retail. But we also evolved that part of the business from being purely a ready-made meals company into supplying frozen convenience snacking and frozen foods, and actually looking at the petrol and convenience market, for example. So I think we really tried to differentiate ourselves from a competitors by looking at how we can really add value to the consumer across different channels and really be a holistic meal solutions provider to our
Yeah.
end clients. I think that's probably been the key kind of defining kind of piece, like I would say over the last 4 years for the business, 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, you've done an amazing job just listening there. You've obviously got a very diverse sort of portfolio of A, offer, but B, your customers and contract manufacturing, convenience, supermarkets, airlines. So, if any of they're never all going to come off the boil at the same time. So you've got a very strong sort of foundation of a mixed portfolio, which is absolutely fabulous. Tell us a little bit about some of the offers. I had a look again today, like really beautiful branding, by the way. But talk to the guys about some of the offers that you specialize in. What are your sort of signature products? I noticed there's a little bit of an Asian theme, I see.
Yeah, so look, I think this is again, the business really started. I think this is going back to the roots. When we initially started, we started off doing Indian and Asian style ready made meals. So I think that's how the brand Yummy Karma came about. So initially, it was probably more around the organic and the feel good aspect of the name Yummy Karma. I think over the years, we actually evolved into a business that has multiple brands. So Yummy Karma is still the parent brand and it's still a flagship brand of the business. Yummy Karma is now a flagship brand, but it evolved from being purely an Asian and Indian kind of meal solutions offer into more holistic, natural foods brand. So we are very strong with Yummy Karma within the airline space. So within the airline space, we do hot handheld snacking products for airlines. And we do little mini snacking. So we do mini pizzas, we do mini veggie bites, for example. We're doing mini hot pockets. It's quite a diverse range of products within that space. The brand Yummy Karma also plays within the retail market. So we supply customers like Woolworths and Harris Farm markets, and we've actually supplied Harris Farm for the last actually 8 or 9 years. They've been with us, from the start, to be honest. Yummy Karma is more of a premium niche kind of a brand within that space because, it attracts a certain a customer that's looking for wholesome natural products. We also have a couple of other brands within our portfolio. So we have another brand that we probably developed about 5 or 6 years ago, where the kind of vegetarian space was really booming. So not plant-based, but vegetarian. So we don't do any meat alternatives. We look at whole food vegetable options. So we have a brand called Veggie Goodness that we obviously developed, and actually that brand plays within the veggie bites and the veggie burger space. So we do some contract manufacturing for some clients using like the IP that we have within that brand in terms of the range of products. So Veggie Goodness is kind of our vegetarian offer. And then last year, in line with some of the work we were doing with Costco, we actually developed a brand called the Tasty Snack Company. And that brand is more into frozen convenience foods. So it's about looking at handheld grab and go foods, but for the retail market. So we looked at synergies that we had within the airline space because we were doing snacking within airlines. And we really said, look, how can we translate what we're doing within the airline market? And we had some, really interesting feedback from customers. When you supply airlines, you get instant feedback from passengers. Retail is a little bit different because unless somebody is absolutely unhappy with your product or absolutely happy, you probably won't hear from the remainder of the consumers in retail. But within airlines, because you're sitting on a flight and you have a lot of time, you actually hear from a lot of people. So we kind of said, look, what can we do? We're already playing within the airline space. We have feedback on these products. So we then decided to actually take a brand and actually do it within retail that looks at some of the airline products that we were doing, but also other products. So we did some products for Costco. We're doing some bulk packs for Costco, again, which is more retail style products. But this is more in the, convenience snacking space. So we're doing things like egg muffins, like little mini burritos, for example. So snacking style products.
Yeah, that's amazing what you've done with the airlines there. Going back a couple of decades just quickly on the convenience store industry, which I'm pretty close to. There wasn't a chilled meal to be seen until probably around pre-COVID time, and I think there's a little bit of a COVID hangover where there's actually that segment of let's call it meals that either be taken home or reheated there and then has actually grown into some of the convenience store retailers actually grown into quite a category now at last.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think you're right. I mean, I think the prepared food space is probably one of the most competitive spaces you can be in, right? Because you have things ranging from snacking all the way through to soups. You have things that are prepared foods, ready-made meals. you have meal solutions, you have components that people can buy. So I think there's a whole spectrum of opportunities, I guess, within the market.
Yeah.
But I think Australia is also, I think, as a market, it's actually highly evolved in that space because of I guess the dynamics of the market. Things are probably quite expensive to make from scratch. So if you can get a ready meal at $9 or $10, it probably makes more economic sense to do that than to actually buy $50 of groceries and actually waste a lot. So I think especially in
Yeah.
the current environment that we're in, with the rising fuel prices, I think it's going to be even more interesting around, I think, offering consumers value for money and really giving people a
No, definitely.
competitive choice that they can really kind of fall back on.
Yeah, definitely. I think going back, quite a few years now, there was quite an acceptance by the consumers of this turn of phrase, ready to cook. Buying, a stir fry or raw kebabs to cook and for the consumer to finish off and cook at home. But that's, with the price of meat now, the sort of fully cooked and heat meal segment has definitely in the last 4, 5, 6 years has definitely evolved big time, isn't it? But it took a long time.
Powerful. I love it. Love it. Love to see you guys are leaving a legacy, and that's what we're doing, these conversations that people can come in. And yeah, quite powerful to see the future of Yummy Karma, where you guys are going. And it's been a pleasure to have all three of you guys here on the Food Mental, our live podcast journey, where David Burns is on a keynote world tour as he travels on his tour, speaking and powerfully, having conversations in this arena. And Adnan, you've been an amazing guest with an amazing passion, and we can't wait to see the future of Yummy Karma and catching up. Maybe the next one we'll do a live podcast. Who knows? Fantastic. Thanks, guys. Hey, what's wrong? Bro, I'm stressed out. I'm running my business. I've got to serve my customers, but I need more customers coming in. I can't keep relying on word of mouth. Why don't you just use ETS Rabasha Media? Who? Well, with AI now, what they do is they go in, get your perfect clients, bring them in front of you. So all I got to do is run my business and he brings me opportunities. Think about it. You speak to 3,000 of your ideal customers, convert 1% of that 3,000. That's 30 people. 30 people in a room with you. Can you convert that? Of course I'll close them. I'm good at what I do. I just don't have time to be going and looking for my perfect client. Focus on what you love doing and let them bring you customers. When you win, they win. Commission, cha-ching. Sujira Rabasha, huh? Yeah, Sujira Rabasha. Go and Google them, man. Come on, take it to the bank.
If you really enjoyed this video, make sure to click here, and I'm sure you're going to love that one.